fix the money, fix the world, Bitcoin fixes everything. I don't think social money that cannot be confiscated or stopped, that's just part of the puzzle. Then what?
What as a human can you do to be as free as possible?
We are all born free. Different entities start to restrict our freedoms. Bitcoin is just money. Bitcoin is a network, an information network, just like email. And it will become boring. Everybody will be using it. Everybody will be used to it. A book like this, like a paper book, it's a platform of its own. So you only need this. You don't need any additional infrastructure, maybe a candlelight or sunlight. To me, masculinity is the urge, the need to protect others, to provide for others. Like psychopaths and assholes are psychopaths and assholes, and we should call them as such.
Bitcoin is just money. Bitcoin is just money. Everyone uses money. Bitcoiners are not special. Bitcoin is not virtuous. The internet is not virtuous. You go to heaven on the back of your own actions. You damn few. Regarding this post, and it's obviously from you, when did you first discover Bitcoin? Why are you now publishing books about Bitcoin? And what is Bitcoin for you now?
Right. So it's a little bit of a long story, as it often is. I discovered Bitcoin as early as 2010, purely from a tech perspective. I didn't know anything about the money or anything like that. Just like to play around with all kinds of different software. I didn't really understand what it was, and kept doing that for years. Every now and then it will pop up somewhere, some in news, it's going up or whatever, but I didn't really pay attention to it until I think 2016, 2017, started taking a little bit more interest. Had started my own company, so I got more interested in money and business. And 2017, I read the Bitcoin white paper, and then I realized it's a protocol that has the possibility to solve all the major economic issues in the world. So that blew me away, and I just decided that I need to help other people understand it, because I was suffering from it for such a long time without understanding it. And I don't consider myself especially a stupid guy, but I still didn't get it, even though it was like right there. So there's I think there's a lot to be done to explain Bitcoin correctly, and not only technical side. Like, I don't consider myself technical, but the most important side is the possible socioeconomic implications for humankind that have really a chance to take us to the next level. So that's kind of like, I want to work for the future generations and not just try to pump as much value from this lifetime that I have left, but rather build something that is lasting for the whole humanity and for my children and their children's children. So that's why I've committed to publishing books about the Bitcoin, and not only Bitcoin. Of course, Bitcoin is just a very powerful tool of liberation, but about liberty in general, about being free, and it's about your mindset. Try to leave the fiat slavery mindset and become free. Like, you don't really need Bitcoin for that. Like, I became a digital nomad way before I became a Bitcoiner. So I guess my mission is to liberate as many people as possible from the trap of the prison of their own mind.
Yeah, I also saw that you one of the fewer Bitcoiners or freedom maximalists that don't have Bitcoin in the bio directly, but it's obviously from the profile of your Twitter and from your online profile that Bitcoin is a big part of your life, but still you keep it out of your bio, you keep it out. It's like not a Bitcoin publishing house, it's consensus network. Is that all intentionally? It's like because freedom is the thing that goes above Bitcoin.
I think it's a vector. It's kind of like a path that you put yourself on. At first, I was really obsessed with Bitcoin in every way. I used to think, like many still think, that fix the money, fix the world. Bitcoin fixes everything. Bitcoin fixes this and that. I don't think so strongly now. Like, a Bitcoin is just money. That's what the tweet is about. It's just money, and it's kind of boring, really. Like, everybody uses it. It's like air. it's necessary, but it's not really like your goal in life should not be breathing air, I guess. I mean, you might as well not exist. So if your goal is just to gather maximum amount of money, so what? Like, what's the good? What are you doing with that money? How do you wield that power, that stored energy, that Bitcoin as the quintessential hard money can enable? So that's just part of the puzzle, to be able to have store your energy in a resource, in a money that cannot be confiscated or stopped. That's just part of the puzzle. Then what are you going to do with that? And that's the part that I'm interested in.
What's then? Like if you have a life, you want to be a maximal freedom human, and you figured out the money part. You're like, okay, Bitcoin is my savings technology. It's my money device. What as a human can you do to be as free as possible? And what does this mean to be free?
Well, I would say that to be free, like, we are all born free technically, but then of course our freedoms start to, different entities start to restrict our freedoms from birth. Of course, our parents are obviously one, but maybe that's a little bit different. They try to keep us safe for the most part. But then we have another kind of entity, the government, which is sort of always going to be trying to parent us into doing the correct thing, and they will use kind of like a central power element to set what is the truth, what is the correct way to behave, and instead of market. So I guess free market and free trade between individuals, that's true freedom. And without any stealing, without any course, that's the kind of freedom maximalism that I'm talking about. You have freedom of speech, you have freedom of action, but of course you have to remember every action has a consequence. So if your action is to initiate violence, then usually that violence is met with violence. So that's why non-aggression principle is so important, such an important part of being a free human being. So you can't really be free and then expect people to do what you want, or use violence to make people do what you want. So you should use market for that. So providing better and better services so that people will give their money to you voluntarily, that's the highest compliment in the free entrepreneurial market.
Is giving money voluntarily, do you mean with that value for value principle and the sphere for content creators? It's quite popular also. And do we still need a referee? Like I don't know how you would call it, like state or like government, but it's kind of a referee if someone exposes violence against someone else with no reason, or with bad reason maybe, like whoever says is a bad reason, but it's like violence. Do we need a referee still, if in an ideal world?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, whenever there's a human beings there trading, there's bound to be a dispute at some point, for sure. And that's the maybe the biggest unsolvable problem that humankind has always had. And I don't know if it is solvable in the end, like arbitration between two trading parties. Like, everything is a trade. Everything, like I decide to use a part of my day to come to this podcast. That's a trade, because I get something from this, and the trade does not happen unless both of us think that we are getting more than we are giving. So that's the basis of the trade. There's two concepts from Austrian economics that are called ex ante and ex post, referring to the trade. So ex ante is before the trade. You have a certain expectation of return from the trade. And then ex post is after you've done the trade, you have data. Was it a successful trade? Am I happy with it? Then at that moment, your opinion might change. Okay, this was not a good trade. I wish I didn't do it. But ex ante, I had a higher expectation for the trade. So even if later you regret your trade, at that moment when you made it, your value expectation was positive. So ex-post situation, you're not happy, your product doesn't match your expectations, or it was described poorly. So what do you do then? Of course, you can contact your trade partner and try to resolve it that way, one-on-one. That's the first step. But unfortunately, that doesn't always work, especially with internet trade. There's a lot of scammers. So how do you arbitrate that? And we have the courthouse in the modern world now. But I think with the software, that kind of solution could be possibly solved with some kind of a decentralized network solution, which is something that I'm really interested exists yet. From Austrian perspective, it's usually private courthouses, so the same thing as every other government service. Free market would provide this service, so there will be these trusted courthouses that trade partners can then hire to arbitrate the issues. But again, there's an issue of what if the other trade partner does not recognize this court that I want to use, and then how do you arrive to, without coercion, without using violence, how do you make both trading partners use the same arbitration system? And that is a difficult problem to solve, and it's currently being solved by violence. So state police will impose the justice system on two parties that don't agree on a trade.
That's it's an interesting idea, having private courthouses that are more locally involved. But if then there's one party that says, "Look, I don't want this courthouse because I know I don't know, you have a relationship with one of the high ups there, you can expose something." I mean, I guess it's the same with the current system, because if two are standing and the judge has some thing like there's a lot of pitfalls in even the system now, and it's exposed to violence. Coming back to consensus network, you started the company with a really, really simple idea, translating the Bitcoin standard in Finnish, I think it was. What's the founding story all about, and how did you go and build this bigger company with, I think now 11 languages supported?
Yeah, so I read the Bitcoin standard in 2018, a little bit after it came out. I think it was October. And it really spoke to me because it kind of outlined all the issues that I thought that are there, but I just couldn't really point a finger at it or put a name on it. And it told me a lot about money and Austrian economics. That's how I fell down the Austrian economics rabbit hole originally, after reading Bitcoin Standard. Seyr has great resources for that book. So if you just go through the list of books that he used as references, that's a great start to understanding economics and humankind in general. So it was a really mind-blowing experience reading that book. So I just wanted my dad to be able to read it as well, and he doesn't read English. So immediately after I read the book, I contacted Seyr if I can translate it. And that's how I found out that I need to buy the license and so on, and I have to start a company. And that's why I started Consensus Network in January 2019, just to be able to translate that book. And I had no high expectation that it's going to do well or anything, but then it was quite popular in Finland. So then I figured you can probably do it elsewhere. So I just started replicating the kind of like the concept, how we did it for the Finnish market, in other markets, and it grew organically from there.
And you have now also own books that you are writing. The last one I saw is 21 Futures. Is this the first book?
Yeah, this is the first one that is completely our own production. Like we've launched Knut Svanholm's books like praxeology, and the very first original English work was Everything Divided by 21 Million. So those were like our production in a way. But of course, they're Knut's books, so we're just his publisher. 21 Futures is the first one that we kind of created together with the lead editor, Philip Charter, was his idea. So we curated from the market these 21 authors with 21 stories. We got over 50 submissions, and then we curated 21 stories into the book. So in that sense, it is our first like unique production.
But what is the stories about? What are the authors in it?
So there's a couple of authors that you probably know. Knut Svanholm is one. Joni Appelberg is one. There's the Bitcoin dog, Who Let the Bitcoin Dogs Out. That's a funny one. So I think the variety of the stories is quite strong. So you can just pick it up and read the stories in any order, and you will be treated to like thrillers and mysteries, dystopias, horror, comedy, drama, all that kind of things. And the reason why I think this is an interesting and a good product is that Bitcoin is kind of like in the background, and the libertarian ideals. It's not like we're not pushing them, and that's by design. That's on purpose. So the main focus is on the stories and the human interest and the character development and the world development. Just interesting stories, and this, I believe, is the way to introduce these ideas, these complex ideas, to a wider audience by just telling better stories and not necessarily pushing any kind of an agenda. Like some of the stories, things have gone really badly because of Bitcoin. Like it's not just that Bitcoin fixes everything. In the book we explore all kinds of different possibilities what may happen in a future that is colored by this kind of Bitcoin idea.
So a little bit like from Jeff Booth, The Price of Tomorrow, where Bitcoin is, I think, mentioned once or twice in the whole book, where the whole concept is like telling a story or telling a problem or telling something, and Bitcoin is just in the background. It also goes back to what you said in the beginning, that Bitcoin is basically just money. And now I'm really into Bitcoin. I started my journey in 2020, and but I already know that there will be a time where Bitcoin is quite boring because it's just adopted. It's just money. It's just in our ways. How do you see the Bitcoin story evolving? Like, where are we right now? Which phase are we in? How long will be Bitcoin so interesting that everybody talks about it? Kind of in the sphere, and there are Bitcoin only podcasts coming out. There are books about it. And is there like in 100 years time there's all these Bitcoin books and all this Bitcoin education, but it's like nobody's interested anymore because it's just money?
I think we're already kind of past that. Like from publisher perspective, there's a lot of people who want to publish Bitcoin books still right now. But I think that the time has sort of passed on that already. Like, I don't know if you remember a movie called You Got Mail, which was made somewhere in the 90s. It's a movie about email, essentially. Now imagine somebody making a story about email. Like, how boring is that? Like, that's not really something that you would like to see. So I think the same thing is going to happen. Like now we don't really even call it as Bitcoin fiction. And the same reason why I don't market Consensus Network as a Bitcoin publishing house anymore. It's Freedom Publishing House. Freedom is a evergreen, never dying, undying idea. Bitcoin is not. Bitcoin is just money. Bitcoin is a network, information network, just like email. And it will become boring. Everybody will be using it. Everybody will be used to it. And there is no need to write specific stories about Bitcoin. Bitcoin will just be integrated just like anything else, just like an internet is integrated right now into most of the stories. It's just something that people use, or smartphones. There's no need to make smartphone fiction specifically. It's just a tool that people like to use. They don't know how it works or what the protocol is, underlying protocol is. And I think same thing is happening to Bitcoin. And of course, for us Bitcoiners, it's difficult to see because we live and breathe Bitcoin all the time. We're interested in all the news, all the developments. We think it matters. It's the most important thing. And it is an important thing. But still, human action is what dictates everything. And in that way, I think it is correct to say that Bitcoin has sort of already won the monetary network war, if there ever was one. I mean, the competition is really only the fiat network. There's no other competition. So in that sense, seems like it has won just on the assumption that you can keep using it voluntarily, and nobody can force you to use it, or nobody can force you not to use it. That's very important. If that is taken away, then Bitcoin sort of has no value. The value proposition comes from avoiding the coercive monetary system. So it doesn't even matter so much if it's going to be like hyperbolic Bitcoinization and everybody's going to be using it. In fact, I don't really believe most people will ever be using Bitcoin as we are using Bitcoin today. Maybe they're going to be using some layer 2, layer 3, layer 10 systems that are somehow tied to the Bitcoin blockchain. And I don't think people care. I don't think people don't care that they're using Linux when they use their smartphone operating system. They don't care. They just want it to work. Same thing will be with money. It will just be an app, essentially, application layer that they can use to get what they want. And if it's diamond points or if it's Bitcoin or Sats, that doesn't really matter. It will just be a protocol, just the same way as using internet. They don't really care if it's TCP/IP protocol or whatever is working underneath. But it still be interesting for enthusiasts like us. So there will be a place for Bitcoin books for sure, but it will be something similar to computer science books or books on Austrian economics. They will never be mainstream.
Yeah, I also think so. Like how many people are right now really understanding Bitcoin? Like how many people have really a hardware wallet, doing the signing themselves, running them a node themselves? Like I think there's not a lot of people that actually understand it's actually put like 200, 400,000, 2,000 hours of learning into it. And then there's also the number that hold Bitcoin. This is way larger. I know even in my friend circle, I have like at least 10, 15 friends. I know they have over 50% of their net worth only in Bitcoin, and they're really bullish on it. But if you ask them 10 Bitcoin questions on the second or third level, they are blanking out because they did not do the research that deeply. So I completely agree that most people will not care about Bitcoin ever. But they will use it without even knowing it on a layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 10. Layer 10 would be interesting. A lot of building has to be done till then. So I have one interesting question also. The first time Michael Saylor came out and spoke about his investments was with the mobile wave. Like he talked about the mobile wave, how Amazon, like Apple, Amazon, and all those big players will dominate the next 10 years. And he published a book about it. And when he came into Bitcoin, he chose to not publish a book about it. He also, I think he spoke on a podcast about this idea that he is like, it takes a long time to write a book, and he decided to not do it. Instead, he went on a tour of podcasts. I think there was a time in 2020 and beginning 2021 where you cannot find any Bitcoin podcast where Michael Saylor was not on. And how do you see the future of educating the next generations? There are more and more podcasts coming out, more and more short videos, more and more engaging content, and it seems like books and this low time preference vehicles are more unpopular, especially outside of the Bitcoin world. I think in the Bitcoin world, it's still really popular to read books, to dive deep into things. With a podcast, you can also dive really deep into things. But how do you see this progressing, this teaching the new generation, teaching the next generations, and getting informations documented?
I think the books are definitely less and less popular. I would say that they are never gonna. I don't say that they're ever gonna go away. I don't think, because, well, for one, a book like this, like a paper book, it's a platform of its own. So you only need this. You don't need any additional infrastructure. Maybe a candlelight or sunlight, and you can read the information. You don't need electricity, for example. So I think that's an unbeatable medium for storing informational value. That being said, of course, with the smartphone and the high bandwidth internet and subscription services and the convenience of audiobooks, podcasts, and TikTok, which is, I find, kind of unfortunate what it's doing to our time preference and our attention span. It is what it is, and I think we also need to lean into it as educators and meet people where they are. If people want to watch 1 minute TikTok videos and we want people to be educated, well, I guess we're making 1 minute TikTok videos. It doesn't, like, if we make 2 hour podcast, they're still not going to watch it. Even if we chop it to like 2 minute bits, they're still too long. So, I mean, we can, the approach that I've taken is that I'll build the library either way. Like, I believe that any citadel begins with a library, because you have the core sort of like informational storage node that you can then use to propagate in the meat space. Let's say that all the electricity goes down or the internet is unusable for some reason, which can happen, at least locally. So then you would still have the library. You would still have means to educate people, and I think that is immensely important, especially in a citadel when you're going to have kids. You're going to bring the new generation. How you're going to teach them? You're not going to be able to remember everything, so you're going to need a library one way or another. And hard drives are not the best way to store information. So I think paper books are great. Plus, there's the tangible element. We are still physical human beings. We are not ethereal. So just simply touching something and, even the smell of the ink and the paper, it's a different experience. And I would argue that it will affect your learning experience as well, whether you read it from the screen or you read it from the paper or you listen to it. Those are all different products and they're all complementary and not exclusive. But yeah, to answer the question, yes, I do believe that the books are less and less popular. They're not ever going to go fully away. And we just need to meet people where they are and adjust according to the preferences of the market, as entrepreneurs always do.
Yeah, I also decided because of that to like I just started out with the podcast, but I also do because of that short clips of the podcast, and they sometimes go really really good, way better than the long format. But the interesting part, time is additionally, like when you calculate everything together, time is more spent in the long format than in the short formats altogether. Of course, the short format is like I put from one podcast, I put maybe 5 to 10, maximum 15 shorts out. So if you have 15 times, I don't know, 30 seconds, you need a lot of people to compete with even 100, only 100 people listening to the whole long format content. Do you see this shortened attention span, this higher time preference, the TikTokification of every platform as a big problem? Is it a trend, or is it just something that is now and will reverse itself?
I don't know. I I think it's just, in a way, it's evolution. Um, just like when TV came first, like before TV, people had to really, if they wanted to be entertained, they would go to plays or listen to concerts or read books. And then TV came and you have the entertainment available in your living room. That was already a big change. Was it for better or for worse? It's difficult to say. It is what it is, because we can't really go back and undo it. So I think the cat is out of the bag. I don't think we're gonna go back. Like there's really no no point in doing that. I guess what's going to happen is that if people find that, it's harmful to use this short form content only, then we will naturally gravitate back towards different kinds of content. Sort of like, when animals, they feel ill, like they're missing fiber or something, the cats eat some grass, or the plants or dogs, to balance their body. And I think human beings are no different physically. So if there's something that we're doing to hurt ourselves, our bodies and minds will find a way to balance it out.
That's it. I this just came in my mind. I watched a Mr. Beast video, I think a week ago, and I don't watch his videos a lot, but my girlfriend watched it, so I was like, let's watch it together. And there was an experience where two people were completely strangers, were in a cell for 100 days, and they got some options along the way. Do you want TV, stuff like that? But they had to pay a price for that. They, like, if they survived 100 days, they got €500,000, and if they want to have like a bed, they have to pay €50,000 from that. If they want a TV, they have to have stuff like that. For this first 70 days, they were really strong, did not got seduced by any TV options or bad options, did not spend any money. And then on day 70, they offered them everything, like all the nicest food, all the TV options, all the best bed and stuff like that, for like a low price. Of course, they went for it, and this was not bad. It was a good decision, I think. But the interesting thing is, from day 70 onwards, they got way more into fighting and way more in the hairs of each other than in the first 70 days, where they had almost nothing, like shitty beds. They couldn't even turn down the lightings. It was always just like really bright, so they could not sleep nicely. And sometimes I feel like, with everything available all the time, with like TikTok always there, you can just open it and you can spend 2 hours in there, be entertained, and don't have to think yourself about what you're doing. It just makes us, I think, less happy in general. But that's just a random thought about what I came into my mind. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it is true that scarcity in many occasions is behind subjective value, because you tend to value stuff that you don't have. That's why people are interested in chances to get rich quick, because they don't have money. Usually people who have money are, I wouldn't say usually, but oftentimes people who have a lot of money, they get quite unhappy and OD on drugs or something like that, even they have everything available. Or maybe that's because, I don't know, I wouldn't know. But I suspect that it has to do with having too much optionality. In a way, restriction, especially if you impose the restrictions on yourself and somebody else is not imposing them, like somebody imprisons you or takes steals away from you, that's artificial scarcity. That's what government does, essentially. So that's not real scarcity. Real scarcity is like when you're born, you're born naked to the world, you have nothing, and that's where you start to build your wealth upon. And you have nothing and you attain something, you enjoy it fully, because you know that you put your work in that and you deserve that. And I would argue that, at least for me, I enjoy watching TV or playing video games way more after I feel like I've earned it. Like if after I worked hard and then I want to take a break, instead of if I play like 5 hours video game, it gets worse and worse and worse. It's the law of diminishing returns. So the more I have something, the less I value it. So I guess going back to the self moderation, or finding like the homeostasis of mind and body alike, I think we are self adjusting. It's just a matter of, do we really listen to ourselves? Like, do we see past the cognitive dissonance that, what the governments and what TV and what the marketers and big corporations tell us that we want and we need to get this and that to be happy, but we don't feel it really. So that creates cognitive dissonance. So I think what really is rewarding way to live is to work and earn, gather resources, make investments, and that way elevate yourself on the steps of life towards the self-actualization, which is the top shelf of life, where you can really start to enjoy and realize your ambitions instead of just running in this rat race and getting this and getting that, knee jerking to every impulse that is imposed upon you without looking inwards and thinking like, what is it that I'm really good at? What is it that I really enjoy doing? And just instead of taking it from somebody else.
Yeah, that's really beautiful and very true. There are two things that just came up. One thing, before I went into Bitcoin, I was into stocks. I was into finding the new cash flow cow, and I also went into Tesla. And it was since I was like 19 a big dream of mine to have once a Tesla. And I also put like an Instagram story out there, I want to have a Tesla one day. And I got into the Tesla stock and it went crazy up. So I did a lot of research. It went down before, but still I did not know fully what I did there. So I guess I was getting lucky, and got so lucky that I could afford a Tesla. So I bought a Tesla, and it was a really, really interesting experience for me because the first month is amazing. You have the vehicle; it's a really fast one. Every time you take friends or family or whatever with you, it's fun to see them enjoying it with you. But after like 1 or 2 months, it's just a car, and now I'm having a Nissan Leaf, and then it's just the same experience for me. It's like it's a car. It drives me from A to B, and it teach me really soon, because I was only like 21 or 22 at that age. Teach me really soon that something that I dreamed so hard about and obsessed so hard about isn't that great when you have it, because then you have it every day. It's in the garage. You can take it out every time you want. So that was an interesting experience for me.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. Yeah, in general, things that are attainable are not great goals. Like, what then? Like, once you attain it, what then? Like, what's the next thing? You need a next thing. You need a fix. So I like to shoot for something that is unattainable, like total freedom, for example. That's a good example. You can always try to be more free. Um, or striving to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect, but you can always try to be a little bit better every day, and that's how you find a reason to live every day, because you always have a goal to strive for, the next steps to strive for, and you're never going to reach it. But it's not about reaching the goal. It's not about getting your Tesla and then you're happy, because we're never going to be happy. We're human beings. We thrive on action, and inaction would lead to the heat death of the university. Nothing moves, and there's nothing to strive for. Or if we would live forever, we would be gods. Then we would do nothing, because we can always postpone it to tomorrow. So the scarcity of our time makes it valuable, makes every action expensive, and everything becomes an investment. So I think running after materialistic things can be extremely unsatisfying. At least it was for me, because I guess we realize that our time is way more valuable than, like, let's say I work for a year really hard and I get my Tesla, or I get a home theater system, or whatever it is that I think that I need and want. And once I wrap it up and play with it for a month, I get bored with it again, and I just wasted a year on it without really advancing myself on the step of life. I've advanced myself on the materialistic steps, which is essentially just gathering stuff that I now need to worry about and take care of and pay insurance on, and buy gas for, or whatever. So it doesn't really increase my freedom. It's the opposite, in fact. So then once I became a freedom maximalist, I realized that I want less stuff, not more. I just want good quality stuff and as little as possible, because that increases my freedom. Like, this is something that I realized after I burned out in my fiat career, and I sold everything. I went traveling with no possessions. Like, everything I owned fit in my backpack, which was like 32 liters. And the level of freedom I experienced during that trip was just like a game changer for me. I've never been so free. And whenever I settle down somewhere, I gradually start becoming less and less free by putting down these anchors, getting a house, getting well, I don't have a car, but let's say I had a car, all those things, or a job. They are anchors that diminish your freedom. So to sum it up, I would just say that everybody needs a goal. So figure out what the goal is and make the goal unattainable so that you can always strive for it.
And you said that you're also a digital nomad, so you're also still moving around a lot. How are you doing it? Like, are you staying 1 year in or like half a year or just months or like longer? Or how is the journey of digital nomad?
Well, I used to do it like that, like maximum 1 year in one place. But I moved to Madeira a little bit over 2 years ago. And I like it so much that I've just stayed here instead. And it's the first place that I really had the feeling that I don't really want to go somewhere. I mean, I still like traveling, but it's just too damn comfortable here. Maybe I'm getting old as well. But yeah, right now I'm staying in Madeira. Maybe we'll go traveling at some point again. But right now I'm just focusing on work. And Madeira is a great place for remote work. The internet is fantastic. I mean, you have everything available. It's small. It's not too big, and it's not too small either. Weather is perfect. Lots of Bitcoiners coming in nowadays. So that's pretty cool. I recommend everybody to check it out.
For the end of the podcast, I want to read another post to you from you, which is not related to Bitcoin at all, or maybe it is for you. One of the most widely accepted scams in framing weak feminine psycho man as masculine. What is masculinity for you, and what did trigger you to writing the post?
What triggered me is that, like, to me, masculinity is the urge, the need to protect others, to provide for others, usually for your family, but also for other people, to stand up for something that you believe, to hold standards, not just uphold somebody else's ideas and standards, but have your own, and be your own man, and be a freedom maximalist. And of course, masculinity is a male trait. And the unfortunate thing about that is we have this concept called toxic masculinity, which is basically something that came with feminism, late stage feminism. And it doesn't really mean, it has nothing to do with masculinity, in my opinion. It's more like these asshole guys who treat their family or their women poorly, and that is called, like, this kind of like macho man type of mentality. That is now what passes as masculinity, and then that's just plain wrong, in my opinion. Like, psychopaths and assholes are psychopaths and assholes, and we should call them as such. Like, if there's only one rule that I have, the only one standard that I derive all my morality from, and that is do not steal. So everything that is wrong in human action relates to stealing. Lying is a form of stealing because you steal the everybody's right to truth. Yeah, there's of course other kinds of stealing, taxation being one of the mostly widely accepted ones. But like abusive relationship, that's also stealing and taking away somebody's liberty to be not under fear and not under aggression And that's also like this kind of toxic masculinity, which is not really masculinity. It's more like just, bad behavior. It's rooted in weakness. It's rooted in inability to control yourself. So you then want to control somebody else because you are somehow stronger or smarter or you have more resources. And this is what governments do as well. They're like abusive spouses. So they leverage their position to keep you under control, to make themselves feel more powerful. And that's exactly what toxic masculinity is about. But real masculinity is the opposite of that. It will elevate people. It will protect people. It will teach people, guide people without initiating violence. So it all comes down to the non-aggression principle and not stealing from people. Everything else is just free game, free market.
That's beautiful. We're having an end routine at the podcast where the previous guest asked a question for the next guest. And your question is from the previous guest. What is enough privacy for you?
That's an interesting and open-ended question. Enough privacy. I guess the best way to think about privacy, in my opinion, is the ability to selectively reveal yourself. Like, I don't need absolute anonymity, or I don't even want that. Like, I just want to be in control of to whom and where and how I'm going to expose myself and my life to. Right. So, yeah, to be able to selectively reveal myself, that would be sufficient. How to get there, that's a little bit complicated answer, because it's not really well understood and well known how much surveillance technology is actually around us. So I'd rather not think about it. So I guess we're sort of living in a world where you don't really have sufficient privacy, but in an ideal world, yeah, that's how it would be, like total control of when and where to reveal yourself.
I think the optionality is really the thing where the power comes from, because when you can choose where and when you can reveal yourself, because I also chose to reveal myself as a Bitcoiner on every social media platform with my real name, with my real face, without any OPSEC. I chose to do that, but people should not be like, everybody should have the option to do what they want with their personal data. Yeah. Very, very true. Where can people find you the best? Is X the best platform to find the Consensus Network and yourself personally?
Yeah, X is the best, and I'm also on Telegram with the same tag. So Omnifin, that's me, and then Consensus N is the company, the publishing house. Consensus with a K. And yeah, do check out 21futures.com and Knut Svanholm's Praxeology. This is a good book and talks about a lot of the stuff that we covered today in the pod. It's about book about how to think and not what to think. And I have one more here, which is an interesting, since you mentioned privacy. So this is by BTC Dragonlord on X, or Karo Chagorus. Bitcoin and the Trust Problem. Also came out in December, I believe. A little bit less known book. I love the cover, so do check it out as well. And yeah, apart from that, yeah, if you have any questions to me, just my PMs are always open. And if you have books or ideas that you want to get published, we can definitely help you there.
Thank you, Niko.
Thank you, Robin. It's a pleasure.